Hello and welcome to the 14th episode of the Melbourne AWS User Group podcast. My name is Arjen and I'm your host today. Before we begin, let me apologize for the extremely late release of episode 13. I was just really busy and didn't have time to do the editing until it was, super late. I really hope I'll do better with this episode, but I guess, when you listen to it, you will find out if that's the case. However, let's look forward instead by looking back at the announcements of April 2021. And as you probably guessed, for that I'm once again joined by two wonderful people. Guy Morton.
Hello.
And Jean-Manuel Becker.
Hello, everyone. Happy to be here again.
It's nice to be called wonderful, Arjen. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
I generally feel so inadequate. That's really boosted my spirits.
We're just all AWS geek who are wonderful, yes.
Cool.
In that case, let's get started. And as always, we do so with Finally in Sydney. I think the big one here, for me at least, is Cloud Shell.
Oh, yes.
I'm glad you said that because I had a look at it and before we did the news the other day, and I was sort of thinking about it, thinking, oh yeah, this is cool. Then I was thinking, what would you actually do with it? So I'm hoping that you're so excited about it, Arjen, that you can tell me what it's good for.
It is good for when you work with clients where you have to jump through a lot of hoops to get a CLI.
And you got automated, AWS keys and stuff like that in there. I went there the other day and I just used Prowler. Prowler. It's a command line tool to check AWS security and assessment and doing auditing stuff. And Python is already there. You install Prowler from GitHub, takes 10 seconds and you launch it. And you can start doing some assessment on the AWS account you are in. So yeah, it's cool. That was missing, or the cloud had that product for a long time. That's safe to install keys and all sort of dependencies and plugin on your own machine. And you go back there and it's still there. And Prowler is still installed, so I can use it. You have 1 gig space per region to have fun with it. It takes a bit of time to launch, like 30 seconds, 45 seconds, depending. But, it's cool. I like it.
Well, that's good.
And it's easier than if you need to do something there locally. You don't have to spin up an instance or...
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. I mean, I could see it was bound to be handy, but I just wasn't sure, what scenarios. And I guess I don't spend a lot of time on, up till now, I haven't spent a lot of time actually outside my home. So, the idea of having to jump through hoops, on a customer site doesn't really apply to me at the moment, but cool. I can see that would be useful.
So that's in Sydney now, in Frankfurt and Mumbai as well. That's a good addition for us. Other news for Sydney is Amazon Transcribe custom language model, support Australian English and British English.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really an in Sydney thing, but anything that is Australian counts, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Absolutely counts. Yeah, that's right. So I think we will need to try and train a model. Maybe we'll get a copy of the script to the castle or some other iconic Australian media and feed it in and see what it makes of it all.
Or we should just try that episode of the podcast where you...
Gave us a fair shake of the sauce bottle.
Yep.
Yeah. It would be nice to think that Transcribe would understand such idiomatic speech, and I guess that's not the only purpose of it, is it? It's also about capturing domain specific language and terms and getting better at understanding those sorts of things, which is really, I think, a key thing, because if you've done speech to text before, you'll know how inadequate it is out of the box most of the time. And so things like this, where you can actually give it a training set of data that is like what you're expecting to get, is obviously going to help you get better results. And the whole purpose of, this kind of stuff is to minimize the amount of human intervention that has to go into fixing data that's been poorly transcribed. So it's nice that we have that model in Australian English now.
Cool. Multi-attach for provision IOPS IO2 now in Sydney as well. So you can attach, you can multi-attach, shared EBS data volumes up to 16 Nitro-based EC2 instance in the same availability zone. That's very important.
Yep.
Remind everyone, EBS is per AZ. So multi-attach is, if you want to build this very old Oracle rack clusters or SQL clusters and stuff like that, you can definitely do that. When you provision the IOPS, each instance are able to drive the full capacity of that EBS volume in IOPS, but the sum cannot override it. So if each instance running 25,000 IOPS, then obviously the volume need to be 50,000, but one instance can drive 50,000 and the other one 0. So that will be the same volume as well. So that's the idea. IO2, I'll remind everyone, IO2 is not IO2 Block Express, which is different, which is much higher in performance. It's just the evolution from IO1 to IO2 with a better durability and 16,000 IOPS per volume. So yeah, pretty cool.
And cheaper and all the good things that come with that.
Yeah, cheaper and 4 gig to 16 terabyte and then up to 1,000 max throughput per volume. So very good product. Useful only if you run, like I said, kind of older type of clusters or rack. But if you need to run that still, that makes sense.
Yeah, I did see that it had a caveat though around using it with Windows. So Windows OS doesn't recognize the data on the volume that's shared between instances. So I guess unless you can live with that, probably it's probably going to be more useful generally in a Linux environment, I guess.
Yeah, I probably missed that. But with clusters, it's always the case, right? You can't have an NTFS. You need to be a cluster mode and managed by the cluster to be able to active.
Cool. And the last one is Transit Gateway Connect. And I really hope you can explain that one to me.
Transit Gateway Connect. So it's not Transit Gateway at all, right? So it is a new connection for Transit Gateway. It is to help SD-WAN connectivity back into AWS. So it's a new connector to the Transit Gateway who allow you to create a GRE tunnel between your SD-WAN and the Transit Gateway and publish routes in between. So you have a connector, you have a GRE tunnel on top, and then you make basically Transit Gateway talk to the SD-WAN, and you can advertise route up and down the SD-WAN, and the SD-WAN can advertise route to the Transit Gateway. So 3 types of connectors now, or more actually, there is 4. You have the normal VPC attachment, that's a connector, up to 50 gig bandwidth. You have the direct connect attachment with the Transit Gateway interface. You have the VPN IPsec attachment, and now you have the Transit Gateway Connect attachment, which is definitely for SD-WAN or for some, let's say, a Palo Alto or for other type of firewall that you want to use. So instead of using VPN IPsec to connect from your Palo Alto EC2 device into the Transit Gateway, you're going to use the connector plus the GRE tunnel, and then they can talk to each other. And so you have much more scalability. You don't need to use BGP because the GRE tunnel is there to do the communication. There is plenty of small advantage, and only for supported product. But it's really to help SD-WAN connectivity for the wider type of WAN connection back to AWS and advertise right up and down the Transit Gateway.
Wouldn't it be nice if they'd given it a name that kind of didn't just sound like a generic, it's Gateway Connect to what? And yeah, I mean, as I can see, it's got a very specific place in the ecosystem, especially if you're a corporate with all that sort of SD-WAN gear that you've already got, out there in the wild, and you want to use that to hook in, in a better way into AWS. But yeah, it could have done with a better name, couldn't it? Maybe SD-WAN Connect or something like that. That kind of gave you a bit more of a clue, like throw us a bone here, AWS.
Because it's a Transit Gateway connector, which is helping SD-WAN. So yeah, it's but it was available. It was announced at reInvent last year. It started to be available in different regions, and now it's good. And there is more and more product was supported by that connectivity. So it's good. Will simplify a lot people who run Palo Altos and other type of firewall in AWS for route advertising. And then there is other product as well, like the Gateway as well was been released as well recently into Sydney to do that. So yeah. Sorry, long explanation, but it's a complex product and really basic networking. So you can connect Cisco and other brands as well to simplify your connectivity to Transit Gateway.
I am really glad you explained it all.
Cool. Well, that's all the finally in Sydney's.
Yep. So serverless. Always fun with serverless. Always.
One of the nice things that I think a lot of people will appreciate is the change in duration billing granularity for Lambda at Edge. Previously in 50 millisecond increments, now down to 1 millisecond increments. And because Lambda at Edge is often used for quite sort of simple operations, either side of the cloud, your CloudFront distribution, often, I don't know what percentage of Lambda at Edge is doing this, but I think probably, I'd have to say at least 50% is just reading and writing headers, changing headers on requests. So those things are going to come down in cost quite substantially, I imagine, for a lot of customers.
Yeah. No, it's a good price reduction there. Amazon API Gateway custom domain support multi-level base path mapping. So that reminds me a bit like what they did for application load balancer as well a couple of years ago, where you could have multiple paths with the same API. So that's very interesting. That remove some other type of API functionalities advantage towards the Amazon API Gateway. So I like that.
Yeah, I think the use case of that they talk about is to sort of decompose the monolith by being able to piece by piece take different parts of the route of an API and redirect them off to different microservices. Yeah. So that's kind of neat.
So yeah, like customers' order items can be sent to one type of API where the or version 2, version 1 was different API. So that allow you to do easier blue-green, easier canary testing as well for your API, and a seamless experience for the customer where they're still hitting the same custom domain. So no, I think it's very, very good addition there to the product.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Then back in the Lambda slide again, you can now integrate Postgres with Lambda. So this is similar to what was possible for MySQL. So your stored procedures and things like that can call out to Lambda, and that way offload some of the processing that otherwise your database might do. And I assume that gives you a chance to either integrate it with lots of additional data from outside of your database or completely mess up your database.
Yeah, and trigger things, other services like SNS. So you could say, if there's an update to this record, send a message out on SNS to trigger some other system to do something in response. Yeah, so just it lets you, I guess, orchestrate other AWS services around data changes in your Postgres database.
Yep.
Lambda at Edge supports Node 14. So it's just a little incremental, not very exciting, but it's important, I guess. There's always progress, the inexorable march of progress.
Yep.
The only other thing in the Lambda bucket for this month is the CloudWatch Lambda Insights supporting AWS Lambda container images. So that's if you're deploying your Lambda via a container image, and I'm ... and I'll let someone else finish my sentence.
So Lambda Insights is just the additional monitoring you can pay for on top of your Lambda functions. It gives you much more insight in how things run. I think there's some ML logic behind it as well to surface things that you might be interested in. And yeah, that now works with the Lambdas that you run from containers, as was introduced at reInvent.
Yeah. There's a step function announcement, so I'm always keen to see new step functions announcements. A new data flow simulator for modeling input and output processing. Now, I saw this announcement and thought, wow, that sounds fantastic. And then I went and looked at it, and it's not quite as exciting. It's more like a learning tool than it is it's not going to do anything for you, your particular step functions state machine instance. It's not going to give you an actual modeling of your functions and what they're doing. It's only going to walk you through sort of how it works. You can put your own inputs in and you can kind of walk through them. So you can sort of interactively, do things like tinker with the JSON path that you're using at various, in various points. And you can see what the difference, would be of making various changes. So I think it would help. It would help you sort of understand, get your head around how step functions is doing things, but it's not sort of going to pick up your deployed state machine and go, let me show you exactly what's happening at each step of your state machine's execution.
Right.
Which would have been nice, because that is sometimes a little bit of a gap. And you do, there's a little bit of, it can be a little bit hard sometimes to get that sort of visibility of what's going on.
So more troubleshooting tool than really a planning tool, is it?
I think it serves two purposes. One is to help you get a mental model of what's going on at various in various types of step functions, step types. But it's also, I think people have a lot of questions when they start using JSON path, and they. I think it's kind of a difficult thing to get your head around exactly what's going on and what step functions is doing. So it kind of gives you a visual guide. You can step through different kinds of, from the input stage right through to the final output stage. You can kind of see what each of those kinds of steps is going to do. And as I say, it lets you sort of tinker with selectors and things like that. So you can kind of get a bit more of an understanding of what it's doing and why it's doing it by inference. Yeah. So, but it's good. I think it probably is, if you're planning on using step functions or if you want to use step functions, I think it's definitely a good tool for figuring out what you're doing and why it's working the way it is.
Okay, cool.
Some improvement on Event Bridge again. This product really get a lot of improvement every month. That you can support. Event Bridge now support cross-region event burst targets, so you can send burst event to different regions from different accounts. So you could centralize between accounts, now you can centralize between regions. So at the moment, destination region are only North Virginia, Oregon, and Ireland, but you can send from many other regions, including Sydney. So that's quite interesting, and I think they're probably going to expand that. So you just need the RN name of your event bridge, and then you can send event to it. So going to be very interesting for very large organization who use multi-region landing zone and stuff like that to be able to send alert and monitoring across regions and across accounts. So this product started being a really massive event kind of hub across the world, across all your accounts. So that's very exciting.
Yeah, I don't think that's any accident. It seems to be a very deliberate strategy.
Yep.
The fact there's only 3 supported destination regions at the moment, it may be a problem for some customers potentially. I mean, you've got latency, I guess, across the Pacific for us. They've got North America and Europe. I guess if you're somewhere between those, if you're in the northern hemisphere, you probably latency wouldn't be too much of a deal. But and I guess the nature of an event bridge probably is, I guess latency shouldn't be a big deal.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the whole nature of it is you're not waiting for things. But I guess the other thing would be data sovereignty potentially. There may be customers who wouldn't want to push anything through hubs that are only in the US or Ireland.
Yeah.
But anyway, look, don't want to be a downer.
Well, I'm sure we're going to increase, and every region will be able to send to anything. So yeah, but having control, monitoring, kind of security events being sent across regions for analysis of events and stuff like that. That's going to be very interesting. Maybe next in Control Tower, I see that problem coming into Control Tower. I don't know.
We'll see.
So the other event bridge thing was chatbot. Have either of you guys actually used or looked at chatbot much?
Yeah, I've used it.
Maybe we should for the news of the Slack channel, because it seems like now you can go EventBridge, chatbot, and then Slack.
So
That
right.
would be cool.
Yeah.
Some customer had to build a couple of integration with Lambda and other product. That seems that could simplify a lot. Having EventBridge to chatbot and then to Slack, all integrated in AWS. That's look pretty cool.
Yeah, it's definitely an improvement, because I've run into limitations where, I can just send this to chat. No, I can't send this to chatbot because it needs to go through SQSQ, I think it was, or SNS topic.
Yeah.
And now you can just do it directly.
Cool.
To Slack, or of course Amazon Chime chat rooms.
Yes,
everybody loves to use.
That's right. I wonder how many requests they're getting. Can you send it to Teams? Can you send it to Teams? And I wonder what their answer would be. No. Back off.
So Amplify also had a couple of minor announcements.
Yeah, I had a look at those. Obviously, if you're an iOS developer, you've got Swift Package Manager support for Amplify iOS, which will be good, I guess. Orchestrating multiple DynamoDB global secondary index updates in a single deployment. So previously you could only do them one at a time. So if you wanted to make multiple changes, you have to do multiple deployments. And also it's facilitating, you can do those multiple updates when you deploy to, your next environment too. So you can go from, staging to production and apply your updates there too. I had a look at the console for Amplify. It's really, they're obviously putting a lot of work into it, and it's looking really very interesting. It's a bit like, there's other platforms around that offer so similar types of integrated app services. But the funny thing, I thought about it anyway, I thought it was funny, is, they've got this lovely console, and most of the services that you can sort of interact with, if you want to actually add, say, a REST API to your Amplify app, you actually have to install the Amplify CLI and do it all in the console, in the CLI anyway. So you can't actually there's a lot of things you obviously can't do in the console, but I think they're obviously, looking to, developers and trying to sort of ease the development process with this product. And I guess the console's really expanding out with sort of, features to help developers do what they need to do in a sort of a more graphical environment, managing data and schema and modeling data and so forth. There's a whole section in the console now for that. So if you are using Amplify, I'm sure you'll enjoy that.
Well then, let's talk containers.
Yeah, your favorite subject.
With a massive amount of announcements this month.
Oh, are you feeling sad? Are you feeling unloved? I
think I will survive the disappointment.
Okay. Yeah. And one of those containers announcement isn't even really a containers announcement, is it? Is it containers or is it secrets manager?
It is containers.
Okay. If you say so.
It is actually the one that I care about the most. So basically, this is Secrets Manager delivers provider for Kubernetes Secret Store CSI driver. So what this means is that it basically, using a standard Kubernetes way of doing things, it will pretend that your secret manager records are basically Kubernetes secrets.
Okay.
Which is good in two ways. One, it means that if your applications or whatever you're running use those Kubernetes secrets, you no longer need to do any syncing if you wanted them somewhere. And secondly, it's of course good for security because Kubernetes secrets aren't.
Right.
As we've probably all seen before, those are just base 64 encoded values. So
right.
Yeah, they're more caching mechanism than really a secret storage. So having that driver going to be very good. Yeah, and you need Kubernetes 117 for that.
And I guess also you get to have the benefit of automated rotation of secrets as well.
Yes.
So you get the goodies of Secrets Manager out into the bargain.
Yeah. So one way I've seen it solved in the past is there's a bunch of sync tools available. I think there was one from GoDaddy that I've seen used, which basically just keeps an eye on Secrets Manager. If it gets updated, it will pull in the latest value, but this is so much better.
Yeah.
Obviously, of course, you could also just build your applications to pull directly from Secrets Manager.
Mm-hmm.
But if for some reason you can't or don't want to do that, this is a good solution.
And he enabled as well, not only Secret Manager, but as well the SSM parameter store, right? With the same plugin, you can access as well SSM parameter store.
Yeah.
So you can find it on GitHub, install it on your Kubernetes, and start consuming Secret Manager. There is another Kubernetes improvement this month is EKS-CTL now support creating node groups using resource specification. So it's more like instead of saying I want a M5 or C5, then you can just say I want vCPUs and memory and GPUs, and it will calculate the number of nodes you need to be able to satisfy your request. And you can even run that into dry run mode. It will tell you what type of EC2 instance it can create for you, and what will be your new cluster will look like with a new number of nodes. So more integration between the kubectl there and the AWS environment to create nodes.
Cool. And that's it for containers. So EC2 and VPC.
Mm-hmm. So what's your favorite announcement from this section, Arjen?
Well, I know based on last month that yours will be the high availability for Red Hat Enterprise Linux.
Wow, so mean.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it means. Is it special AMI, or what is exactly high availability for Red Hat Linux?
It's probably just a licensing deal.
Yeah, I think that you can redirect to your own licensing tool. You don't have to use the licensing inside AWS. But it seems to be just a specific AMI with specific drivers. So what's the other Red Hat? They are not highly available. They are.
Yeah, I think it's just having a quick scan. It's about making compute clusters. So yeah. I suspect I'm probably not far from the truth with it's a licensing deal. So I think it's probably just mainly to do with enabling whatever technical sort of control plane stuff needs to happen to let you do that, plus also an overlay of let AWS collect the money for Red Hat and give it to them so that you don't have to deal with them directly.
You can use Red Hat 7 or Red Hat 8 for that. So yeah, interesting if you're still in the Red Hat world. What was interesting for me was the auto-scaling with the warm pool, I think. That's a very interesting way of having a very nice scaling, a much smoother scaling when your AMI is need a lot of attention to be created, or joining the domain, or all sorts of different things you need to do with instances before they become available into your auto scaling group. So it keep your machine warm. Warm. You have two states. You can have them really warm and already operational and just not in the auto scaling group but running, or you could have them warmish but still stopped because they are not really running. They stop, but they are all prepared, they are all installed, they are all webhook. Everything we need to do through your user data and everything has been done, and the machine is there just stop waiting to be included into the auto scaling group and receive traffic and basically start it. So now you have a new capacity. In the past with the auto scaling group, you have your minimum and maximum. Now you have your max prepared capacity, which is basically in between. And if you have a max prepare, let's say auto scaling group of 6, maximum of 10, and you have a prepared capacity of 8, the auto-scaling group service will keep 2 machines for you in a warm pool ready to be consumed. If you use these 2, then there is no more. You will need to start still doing cold start for your machine, but at least you have that extra buffer if you start scaling. So quite interesting.
Yep.
Couple of limitations though. You cannot have a mixed instance policy, and you cannot have launch spot instance as well in your auto-scaling group. You cannot use, obviously, instance stores because the root device need to be on EBS, not on ephemeral storage. And the other one was, if you try to use that, which would be smart with ECS or EKS, that you might end up with services who try to put scheduled jobs on instance before they are fully warm. So, a bit dangerous at the moment, but for EC2 I think it's working very well. maybe wait a bit for EKS and ECS.
Cool.
Yeah. What I also thought looks cool, but I haven't seen how well it works. And in a way, I'm just thinking, how does this work in the first place? Is the root replacement...
Yeah.
Yes, I've been thinking about it. I had a look at it. It seems to just work. You just replace the root.
That doesn't help us, JM. That doesn't help us.
Yeah, but we need to test it because I think your machine might crash. I mean, if suddenly you remove the disk volume from where logs get written and all of that, what's going to happen? So it seems that there is several stages when you do the process, and there is stages where it fail and all of that. But you can, change the root volume on the running instance.
Yeah.
But I've been thinking about that. Like, for security reasons, that would be pretty good, right? You could replace a machine who have been kind of corrupted, or you could replace your root volume every night at midnight to make sure that the machine hasn't been tampered with. Instead of terminating and recreating a new machine, you could just refresh your root volume and without losing any of your data volume. So because all network interface stay the same.
Yep.
The identifier, instance ID, attachment IDs, all of that, and then all the pending traffic apparently is flushed when the instance go back to available. So interesting stuff.
Yeah, it's just this is one of those things where you see how powerful the cloud is, because if I just think about this in a data center, that you would have your running machine, you pull out the disk that it's running on from, and then put in another one.
That was possible with Red One. You used to be able to do that, right? You had a disk going orange and...
Yeah, but that's RAID though, so I mean... Yeah. that's okay. I can grok that too, but I was having the same trouble grokking this one because I was thinking, hang on, you can't do that. The machine will crash. It's expecting to find all its files in the same places as it left them. There must be some caveats around what can be different about this root volume that you've swapped it out with. I think.
Well, it need to be a snapshot, obviously, of your own machine and stuff. Yeah.
I mean, if it's like if all the log files are in the same places, as for instance, so it's not going to freak out. But it would be interesting to understand that more.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, I wonder who decided to do this feature, really, and what's the real deep usage it is for. Yeah. Because doing it stopped is easy and always has been possible, but doing it live is very interesting. Yeah.
And I know Jeff Barr wrote a post about it, so if people are interested, maybe search that up. I think he had some use cases there. Yeah.
I love the VPC flow log with Athena.
Yeah, that was neat.
Yeah, I mean that was missing, right? I want to see my logs. What do you need to do? I need to write SQL command and stuff like that. That's all predefined. Yep. You attach them together. You can run a couple of predefined Athena queries for you, like accepted traffic, IPv4 traffic,
rejected traffic, top talkers. Yep.
Yeah, the 50 IP most recorded in your VPC. I mean, that's pretty cool to be able to do very quick troubleshootings, and I like it very much. Yeah.
Also, just the setting it up, making that easy, because that was always a bit of a pain. Running the query to create the table.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure we've all got it saved somewhere, so it's just copy paste. But
here is a generated CloudFormation template that you use, you deploy, and then you have your tables, you have your queries already pre-recorded. That's pretty good. Yeah.
Yep. Excellent.
Direct connect with MACsec encryption for dedicated 10 gig and 100 gig connection in selected locations. So for us in Sydney, the only selected location is Equinix, and it's only for 100 gig direct connect. So you can have only one. But, for customers who have always been asking, how can we encrypt traffic on direct connect? Then now it is possible that replace IPsec and all sort of manipulation we had to do in the past. So that use the MACsec security standard to encrypt the traffic similar to IPsec, similar to TLS. You guarantee the quality of the data integrity, and the data origin authentication as well through your packet.
Cool.
I think the other one I want to call out from this list is Nitro Enclaves, now working with Windows.
Mm-hmm.
If you were interested in using Nitro Enclaves but ran Windows, well, your solution is now here.
Fill your boots, as they say.
Yeah, have fun. That would be interesting. So no extra cost, but you share the compute of your EC2 instance with the enclave, and we can process stuff securely, PCI and SSL and all sorts of things. So go back to the announcement we had when enclave came out at reInvent, but now it's possible on Windows.
So Code Guru, I know you're a big fan, Arjen. So there's an announcement this month about that.
Yep, in the Dev and Ops section, which we forgot to mention.
Oh, yes.
So, yes, Code Guru has now become a product people would actually want to use, mostly because it supports Python now, but also because the pricing is now using a sane, aka predictable model, which has pricing of up to 90% lower. I mean, talk about a product that was priced completely wrong for what people wanted to pay.
Yeah. It was 75 cents per 100 line of code. That was crazy, is it?
It was 100 line of code scanned. So every pull request, it would do the same 100 lines and scan them. And
over and over. So the new price now is $10 per month for the first 100,000 line of code on your repo. So even if you scan them many, many times, it's still the same. Still include once a month scanning of your repo. Yeah.
And if you have multiple repos, it aggregates them and it counts the total number of lines across those repos, just taking the biggest branches. So if you've got a branch where you accidentally committed all your npm modules, maybe delete that branch.
Good advice.
Of course, it's Java and Python only, so it's not really an issue. But
no, there's an equivalent, I'm sure.
And you still have a free tier for the first 90 days to test the product for your first 100,000 line of code as well.
That's good.
No cost.
Yeah, I'm going to give that a go and find out how bad my Python coding skills are.
It doesn't count the blanks, so you're fine.
Oh, what, you think my code is all blanks?
No, we think you just comment your code a lot.
Yeah. Do you really? You know me. You know me well enough to know that's not likely, don't you?
I wanted to be positive to you today.
Oh, thank you. I'm really feeling the love. You and I the other night talked about the AWS SSO and credential profile support for AWS Toolkit for Visual Studio, and I've just realised that it's actually Visual Studio, not Visual Studio Code, because I remember saying to you that I'm sure I've been using SSO profiles in Visual Studio Code. Is this something different? Is it actually the difference is that it's in Visual Studio, like the big bad boy of IDEs?
Yeah, so this one is for Visual Studio. Last month,
it was for Studio Code. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Which is actually confusing because when I just saw this again, I was also thinking, didn't we have this one last month?
Yeah, we did.
I forget to remove it, but
yeah. See, when I see Visual Studio, I just think Visual Studio Code because I'm not a .NET developer, so I've never touched Visual Studio. But like probably every other developer out there is using Visual Studio Code these days, unless there's something cooler that's hit the market. It's the kind of leading IDE, I think, at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, without a plugin, yeah.
So given that's about Visual Studio, I don't actually care much about it. But if you're on Visual Studio, you may care. You probably do care. You probably would care. You should care.
Yeah.
SSO profile support is definitely good. TM.
Yeah, you used to have to enter your access keys into Visual Studio to be able to access AWS. Now you can use your SSO and MFA. That's a pretty good improvement.
Yep, absolutely. Switching between accounts becomes a lot easier.
I got a couple of code deploy improvement for EC2 deployment. Code deploy before had to be, relaunch or recheck every time you were updating an instance. Now he can do that in the background for you. He can check if the autoscaling group is running older version and deploy automatically. So and update the revision automatically install when the new AMI join in instead of having to relaunch everything. So a couple of improvements there for code deploy for people who have been frustrated sometimes on the deployment with that product.
Yeah.
Proton also had some improvements.
Whoa, hang on. Whoa, hang on. You've skipped over the announcement that I'm most excited about. AWS SAM CLI now supports AWS CDK applications, public preview.
It's just public preview, yeah.
So this is exciting, don't you think? Do you guys use CDK? Like, have you?
Nope.
You're both old school.
It's still very much on my list of things to do. Now that CDK version 2 is basically it's release candidate now, I think.
Yeah.
So I might just wait until that's out and then jump on that.
Waiting for version 2, fair enough. So one of the things that's kind of frustrating with CDK is that it's the way it packages up CloudFormation to deploy is unique to it, as opposed to how SAM, and it's different to how SAM works. So being able to actually use the SAM CLI to deploy CDK applications would be really quite nice. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that pans out.
How does that work? Because the deployment part of the SAM CLI is just a wrapper around the CloudFormation functions.
Yeah, I don't know what's. I literally saw it tonight and thought, oh, I didn't notice that the other night when I was looking at these things, and I went and had a look at the blog. So there's a blog post talking about it, and so I haven't really dug in yet either. But I do think that they're definitely on the right track, because one of the annoying things about CDK is it's just if you're using SAM's kind of easy and everything kind of works. It's kind of it does what you expect, and CDK does too. But it's the fact that they do things differently is like it's awkward. So I'm hoping that AWS is basically seeing this as an opportunity to kind of try and bring the worlds together a little bit, and to make a common path for how you build and deploy infrastructure. So yeah. I can't answer any questions about how it works or why it works.
You just know you're excited.
I just know I'm excited, exactly. So essentially the idea is that you'll be able to deploy a CDK application using SAM. So if that's interesting to you, check out the blog post and follow on and see how it goes.
And I think the reason it wasn't on when we did the news at the meetup is because it was announced afterwards.
That would make sense. Yeah.
Cool. Then talking about more the old school parts, there's a whole bunch of improvements to CloudFormation. So if you use stack sets, there's some nice things there that you can use macros and transforms, which is basically the same thing. So I don't know why they have to call it that way. But you can now use your macros in your stack sets, as well as deploying them concurrent in parallel to multiple AWS regions. If that is something you need, that should speed some things up. Especially, I think that would help with things like Control Tower.
Yeah, probably, yes.
That uses it under the hood.
Or be careful people who deploy Bitcoin mining product. So they need to deploy to 19 regions at once and start mining in 19 times at a time. So, yeah. But probably very good improvement. In the past, you could schedule them one after the other. Now you can do it concurrently. So the big improvement there across region to deploy templates like AWS config and stuff like that. That would be good.
And another one that I am happy about, and is also something that I complained about in the past, is with CloudFormation modules. So this was released as well at reInvent or around reInvent, which is where you can build your own reusable models, basically templates that you can reuse. Say you have a module for an S3 bucket that has all the security things set up the way you like it, because by default, CloudFormation's S3 gives you a wide open bucket. Then people can use that. And one of the big downsides was that for some reason those modules had to be written in JSON, which was obviously annoying to anybody who wants to use CloudFormation. And the other thing is if you had to refer to things from those modules, you had to do it through a very annoying name. It was module name concatenated with the resource name within the module, something like that. Now, at the very least, you can have dots in between. So clearly define this is part of that, and it's not just one very long name.
Yeah, you can read it much more easily when you look at your YAML template now. The other thing was, I think, missing into this product for really to be embraced is the module need to be per account. So even as an enterprise level, if you define, like you said, an S3 bucket with certain security features that you want all your enterprise to be deploying, you will need to upload that module to every single account you want to use, and then they can be called. It will be nice to see a central repository. That was my second request after the YAML one, to be able to say, in our org, we use that S3 templates, and that's the name of the module, and everybody can call it from any of the account part of that org. That will be a fantastic advancement, and make it really a step forward from the other product who work similarly, like Terraform, where you use modules. So I would love to see that improvement. Using RAM, for example, or some product like that to be able to share that between accounts would be awesome to see.
Yeah, that would definitely be a big help.
Yeah, instead of deploying like 50 times the same module.
Yeah, because it's also annoying to deploy.
And then to update and version and be sure that there's the latest version. So many problems you could resolve by having a centralized repository with versioning, obviously. But
yeah. One other one that has bitten me in the past is that when you use dynamic referencing of parameter store objects or secrets manager objects, you could never ask for the latest version of an object. You always had to specify a specific version.
Yeah.
Which is obviously annoying when it comes to your secrets, because you wanted to use...
Completely annoying. The latest one. Absolutely. Yeah, counterintuitive. I can kind of almost understand why they went that way, but yeah, definitely needed this.
And if you get it wrong, your CloudFormation roll back and sorry, you got the wrong version. Haha.
Yeah. Oh well. That's okay. I think people can live with that. People are probably happy enough to live with that. It's a small price to pay, I think, JM.
So this problem is now half solved, because for at least parameter store parameters, you can now define latest. Unfortunately, Secrets Manager is still not the case, even though you call them the same way. But apparently for Secret Manager ones, you're out of luck.
Really? I thought with Secrets Manager you could just not pass that and you'd get the latest one anyway. I just was doing something with CDK and Secrets Manager today, and I'm pretty sure I didn't have to specify anything identifying the version.
Yep. JM, do you want to talk about the control tower stuff?
Control tower, yes, couple of improvement, nothing dramatic. I think the S3 log archive was a bit too restrictive, so AWS now allow and change the options about the SCPs enforcing the S3 log archive for a couple of S3 buckets. And you can now configure the naming of your landing zone setup by naming the account or the OU differently. AWS had that naming convention with core and audit account and stuff like that. So now that you can modify them. So nothing really that exciting on Control Tower this month.
Fair enough.
So on the system manager side, there's one that seems like a small thing, but that I'm really happy about, which is that the run command can now display more logs and that you can possibly download these as well. This is something that has bitten me in the past, where I would have jobs running that would grab information, for example, group information from an AD structure. And in the past, your logs could only be 2,500 characters, which meant that sometimes the data I needed was cut off. So I had to instead write it all to S3 and then pull it in from Jenkins or whatever. But now it can show up to 24,000 characters, which is more than enough for anything I've run into so far.
Yeah, 24,000 instead of 2,500. That's a big increment, is it? Yeah.
So that one made me really happy, even though I've built in so many workarounds already, so I don't need it at the moment.
Mm-hmm. We were talking about retrieving easily parameters for parameter store. So now there is an easy way for public parameters discoverability. You can ask through the API to System Manager, the latest AMI, a couple of, all the public parameters that AWS provide, regions and stuff like that through the API. And you have a common way of doing it. So some improvement there.
Yep.
Shall we move on to security?
What did we talk about the other day? I think it was bot control was the thing that I thought was pretty exciting about the security side of things. So bot control analyzes request metadata, so TLS handshakes, HTTP attributes, and IP addresses to identify the source and purpose of a bot. So if you've run, anything on the web these days, you no doubt realize that probably 80% of your traffic is bots, depending obviously what it is you're doing. But public websites, not surprising to see 80% of traffic is bots these days. So this will give you, it'll sort of figure out what kind of bots are crawling your website, whether there's sort of scrapers of data, if it's just SEO stuff, which you obviously want, or site monitoring. So different kinds of things, automated things will be hitting your site. So bot control actually does the analysis to figure out what kind of device is accessing your thing. And then once you've got that all sorted out, you can block traffic based on bots that you don't want. So you can leave the bots that do things like, you want Google to be able to crawl your site and index you so that everyone comes to your site, and you want, but you don't, and a site monitor, you want that to get through, but you don't want, just random evil bots that are just doing bad things, trying to probe for, vulnerabilities and such. So yeah, that's a really nice product, I think. I say that without having actually implemented it, but I think if it does what it says on the tin, that'll be a really nice product to add to the AWS product family. Yeah,
and it's part of the WAF, yeah, so you can use it on CloudFront, Application Load Balancer, API Gateway, and AppSync as well, with the WebACL.
Yep.
So you use labeling, like you said. So if you detect a certain bot, you can label it and then decide what you do with that label later, or redirect them to something else. If you don't want to send them to your real site, but send them to another one. So interesting. Yeah.
Send them to a honeypot.
Yes. And then obviously you can use as well Firewall Manager across your organization to manage that bot implementation and enforce it across all your WAF. So very quickly you can enable that product across all your public-facing website.
Yeah, neat.
So a couple of announcements linked with that announcement today. Yeah.
Yeah, and the other big one with the firewalls is the Route 53 Resolver DNS firewall, which I am completely blanking on what it did again.
So it's basically to protect the resources in your VPC from data exfiltration attempts. So it sits between your VPC and the internet and blocks DNS requests going outbound that don't match whatever you think is safe. So you can protect against data exfiltration attempts by defining domain name allow lists that allow resources within your VPC to make outbound DNS requests only for the sites your organization trusts.
Yeah. Would that still not limit to do IP data exfiltration through IP addresses?
Oh yeah. So I guess its particular focus is around DNS, using DNS as an attack vector.
Because what I was trying to understand, so I'm not a specialist of that part, but I thought they were talking about the bad actor extracting data through a DNS query.
That's right, yeah.
So using, I don't know how big a DNS query can be, right? But using packets to talk to a DNS server, which is containing that secure data. I mean, it can be a credit card information cut in 3 or 4 bits, right? And then you send that to a domain that you own with a domain server that you own, and you capture and log all of that. And suddenly, just by using the DNS protocol, which is usually allowed by everyone, you can exfiltrate data slowly. So I thought that was to resolve that problem, but I'm not sure anymore for what you said.
I think it is. I think that is the exact use case that they're talking about. So yeah, so if a bad actor controls a domain name, that they would use DNS queries outbound to resolve that domain name to carry data out of your network. So by putting this firewall in place, you're saying, badguy.com, don't resolve queries for badguy.com, or don't only resolve queries for goodguy.com. Don't resolve any other queries. I think that's how it's supposed to work, or how it works, or what it's doing.
Yeah, because TCP 53, right? And the UDP 53 usually is allowed.
Cool. So this is kind of neat, the review last accessed information.
Oh, yeah.
To identify unused roles, unused permissions, and to be able to tighten access.
Yeah, we used to have tools to crawl CloudTrail to be able to do that. Now it's integrated with the IAM policymaker, so that's interesting. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
And then did you have this problem with source identity attribute sets? With now identity access management help you to be able to track a role when it gets assumed between accounts with a role chaining a user. Did you have that problem where you had to trace information to CloudTrail? Sometimes you had that weird ID that you couldn't find, and that was an assumed role from another account who are appearing. So now you can inject identity attribute, and then it will trace that role across the multiple account into CloudTrail. So it's much easier to find what actors are doing between accounts, and like for the part where you use Terraform or something like that, so you end up with a user identity which is a bit weird to trace. So that's going to be able to help.
Yeah, that's good.
Cool. AWS config, there's an announcement there. You usually like to talk about config,
JM. Some improvement with the conformance pack. So conformance pack is about deploying that into multiple accounts. So now you can trace through config itself the auditing of your conformance pack failure or success, and you can keep this data for 7 years. So interesting. More features I think are coming with the AWS auditor as well. We're going to use AWS config in the background to be able to guarantee that your account never been tampered or never been hacked or never have any vulnerabilities. So using conformance pack first, and then you trace the quality of your conformance pack success across multiple accounts and across multiple regions, and you can keep this data for 7 years again for regulatory purposes. Couple of improvement as well with Security Hub with automated response remediation solution. We use the CIS benchmark, and where you can use AWS config as well in the backend for doing this analysis. So Security Hub has an alert, have some finding, send them to CloudWatch logs, use a couple of Lambda across account with cross-account role to be able to remediate other accounts. So you can have now up to 21 automated remediation, I think, for that particular deployment across account to verify if your account is still compliant with what you want into your organization with Security Hub. So a lot of new automation coming up, focusing on the CIS benchmark, and then there's some best practice from AWS point of view. So and that's an AWS solution product. So it's a CloudFormation template that you deploy between accounts, and then it does that for you. So you, instead of creating your own SNS, your own CloudWatch rules, your own step function, your own Lambda, you use what AWS provide. So yeah.
Cool. Should we move on?
We can just quickly mention the DynamoDB streams now also gets data plane API logged to CloudTrail, just like DynamoDB itself did last month.
Yeah. What is anyone excited about in the data storage and processing section?
A lot of Glue announcement. I think Glue and Data Brew and all these products are getting pushed by AWS a lot.
Yeah.
The Glue custom blueprint seems to be interesting, to be able to create this ETL process and then replicate them with some variable, like for S3 files or something like that, to be able to, have a set of catalog of blueprint to be able to process data for engineers. That way they don't have to reinvent the wheel every time when they want to do some ETL processes. Improvement with cross-account kinesis as well for Glue, data sync with Glue connectors. I mean, there is a lot of announcement there for Glue and Databricks.
Okay, so that's Glue. What about there's a couple of Redshift? So the Aqua Advanced Query Accelerator for Redshift was something we gave a mention to the other day, I think in the news section.
Yeah.
So this is using the FPGA chipsets on the Nitro gear to basically accelerate certain kinds of queries. Certain instance types are included in this set of instance types that can do this. The idea is to basically put this high-speed processing closer to the data, and so you do less network traffic and achieve faster results, I think, is the synopsis.
Yep, basically.
Nice.
There's a couple of other Redshift announcements, I think, just relatively small. Private link support across VPCs. Nothing sort of super earth-shattering.
Yeah, similar with EMR. Not quite sure what EMR Studio does, but yeah, so it's basically an IDE similar to SageMaker Studio, but then for EMR.
Yeah, where you include all Python, Scala, PySpark, and this type of service. So it's wonderful notebooks, and you can start consuming EMR very quickly. The good part is integrate automatically with Okta, Azure AD, login, ping, and Microsoft AD, and it's available in Sydney. But that simplifies a lot the access to your data through the studio, instead of having to manage that through the EMR itself. So with single sign-on.
And presumably that's also aimed at being able to sort of devolve control so that you give your data scientists access through this IDE through Oktas and so forth, rather than they don't have to actually have access to your AWS account per se.
Exactly, and they can work remotely with that studio. So that is a good product. Yeah.
We saw the Athena announcement around network flow logs. So there's some Amazon Athena ML powered by Amazon SageMaker.
So yeah, you can now build and deploy machine learning model in SageMaker and use SQL functions to call them through Amazon Athena and generate this prediction with the SageMaker model. So basically, you link them together. That's enable analytics team to make model driven insight on the live SQL data coming from Amazon Athena.
What else? What else is good? A couple of RDS announcements. RDS for SQL Server now supports extended events.
Yeah.
RDS on VMware networking now simplified, more secure.
So in the past you had to do VPN. Now you can use TLS. No big deal. Amazon FSx and AWS backup support copying file system backup across AWS region and AWS account. So that's applicable for Amazon FSx and Amazon FSx for Windows and for Lust. So you can store a backup across AWS region and copy across account. And you can even now select with organization which account can host backup. That way that save people, having the risk of having data exfiltration to other type of AWS backup account who are not part of your organization, and act obviously for protection against ransomware and other type of blast radius when you want to store your backup into a different AWS account with different encryption key, different type of access, or even a complete bunker for your backups away from your production. So the old off-site backup tape, now you can use another AWS account to do that, and we recommend it. Yeah, so now you can do that with FSx as well.
Yep, I think that's all the exciting ones.
Apart from Ground Station, but yeah, let's not talk about Ground Station because everyone loves to talk about Ground Station.
Well, Ground Station is in Sydney. Just remind everyone, we have a Ground Station in Sydney, and so you can now, instead of having EC2 to talk to your ground station, you can have an S3 bucket directly getting fed from the data from your satellite and then process that data later. So a couple of integration between ground station and S3 instead of having to use EC2 now.
And if any of our listeners has a satellite and is using ground station, we'd love to hear from you. So make sure you get in touch.
On the AI NML side, SageMaker is in savings plan and has some price reductions. Always good. Just keep in mind, savings plan assumes that you're running things for 24 hours a day. So if you don't, then have a good look whether or not it is actually cheaper for you to use that. And you can trigger your SageMaker from EventBridge.
And EventBridge is one ring to rule them all now. That is basically where it's heading, right?
Even across account, across regions. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Look out for equipment. So it's now GA. So this is the tool, the service for collecting up your equipment logs from sensors on your equipment, and they'll apply machine learning models to find anomalies, essentially. So it's now GA.
Yep. That was the last of the lookouts to go GA. I think we've now had all the ones that they mentioned.
Announced to reInvent, yeah.
Amazon forecast, you can now display the estimated time it will take to complete his workflow. So it's kind of forecasting for forecast. That's quite interesting. Yeah.
Oh, wow. It's an inception moment.
Yeah. So to plan your cost and plan the time it will take to process the data. You can have a cup of coffee and come back.
Is there anything in other cool stuff?
Workspace with webcam. That's pretty cool. You can have a webcam now directly through your workspace, so use the different Zoom and other product you use, connect it back to your own laptop with the workspace software running, and that's good.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And smart card as well. So webcam and smart card. So workspace get better and better.
Couple of announcements around interactive video service, IVS. Got CloudWatch metrics now, and support for recording live streams to Amazon S3. So if you're using that might be of interest.
So it's only available in Virginia, Oregon, and Ireland at the moment. But
right.
You can use Open Broadcaster software, OBS, and then stream that and stream to the world, a bit like people do on YouTube. But now you can store on S3 at the same time.
Excellent. Couple of announcements around Connect. Amazon Connect launches audio device settings for the custom control panel. The contact control panel. And I don't know what that means. Amazon Connect allows contact center managers to configure agent settings in the custom contact control panel. So they've made a couple of enhancements to the contact control panel. So if you know what that is and you use Connect, then now you know that there's 2 new things you can do.
Awesome.
A couple of announcements with Cloud9, who support Amazon Linux 2. I wonder why it didn't support Amazon Linux 2 before, but Cloud9 is the IDE you can run in cloud. Becoming a bit redundant when you use now Cloud Shell, but yeah, whatever. You can use a bit of both. And then the one I found interesting though is a CloudWatch metrics stream, where you can stream AWS CloudWatch metrics to a partner in real time. So it's a bit expensive. It's like 0.003 cents per 1,000 metric update. So that can go very, very quickly and use a Kinesis data firewalls in the backend. But you can send your CloudWatch to Datadog, Dynatrace, New Relic, Splunk, and Sumo Logic to have that complete view directly from CloudWatch. So obviously there is more cost with that, but that's interesting. People were doing all the things before.
I'm actually curious how that actually compares to when something like New Relic pulls your CloudWatch data, because that is often very expensive as well.
Yeah, the number of API calls. So it will be interesting to check that. It's available in all regions. So I'm sure all these data providers are going to be very happy to be able to receive more data from different AWS accounts.
Once in a while, AWS has to make them happy too, instead of just stealing their customers.
Yeah.
So, speaking of stealing customers, not that it's about stealing customers, but Grafana Enterprise Upgrade is for Amazon Managed Service for Grafana. So you can now get Grafana Enterprise. It includes OpenDistro for Elasticsearch integration. So to very, very well-established open source projects, both in managed service form and with the ability now to use the enterprise version of Grafana in that managed version. So if you're in those stacks, that may be of interest.
Speaking of graphs and stuff like that, moving graphs in CloudWatch dashboard. Either of you built those yet?
No.
I never use that.
So you can now have animation in your graphs, which for dashboards and stuff is obviously possibly quite nice. I haven't looked at it because, hey, we're all working from home, so who has dashboards anymore?
Yeah. No, that is neat. Because, I mean, CloudWatch dashboards have been pretty basic for a long time. So having a bit of, it's what the guy who was ex-army used to refer to as Officer Fascination Lights. You kind of need, some razzle-dazzle in your dashboard so the boss, when he comes around, or she comes around, goes, oh, wow, that's really good. Whereas if it's just like static graphs, they're going to go, what's this boring shit up on the big screen? But if it's, some numbers are bouncing around or, bars are getting bigger and smaller, that's what you need. That's what you need to get the boss engaged.
Very good.
The possibly last one to mention is the Nimble Studio, which I haven't looked at too closely because it's building a creative studio in the cloud and seems aimed at designers, which is very much not me.
Yeah.
So it's basically a very big workspace when you can run all the different products you need, like Weka and Cumulo and nice DCV protocols with GD4, NVDI.
That's a lot of acronyms, JM. I'm just going to use an acronym. Yeah. So, but it's video, right? It's video. It's like a collaborative environment for your video production studio.
Yeah.
If you've got one, and if you've got one, have a look at it.
You can share that with obviously NFS and SMB data, so people can work remotely, obviously, to be able to continue to do that. And
there's a natty little video that introduces it if you want to go and look at it.
Yeah, the only issue I did read about that I saw some people complain is that to get access to it, it goes through AWS SSO, which is fine in itself, but the SSO needs to be in the same region as the studio. So if you have your SSO here in Sydney, you better wait until it's available here before you start using it. Oh, wait, scratch that. It actually is available in Sydney.
That's all we care about.
Sydney is one of the 5 regions.
That's because we're big in the movie industry now.
The movie industry is all in Sydney, yes. Oh, well, or the Gold Coast.
Which is probably also why it is available in 5 regions and the Los Angeles local zone.
Yeah.
There you go. Exactly. Yep.
That is a snub to most regions. You're not as important as a local zone.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. Shall we wrap up with the nanos quickly?
I can go first with mine. The AWS Console mobile application adds support for Osaka region. The Osaka region has only existed for about 10 years or whatever.
Yep. I think a slow clap. Yeah.
But you needed 3 availability zone for that. That's why it just came recently. Yeah, a lot of announcement for Osaka came this month because of that AZ. Yeah,
but adding it to the app is just like...
It's a bit of a, it's underwhelming. I'm going to be sort of really, I just had to look through this quickly and picked something out, and I'm being very mean to Cyprus, Belgium and Portugal. Amazon Connect reduced their telephony rates for those 3 countries by a bit, and it's not really worthy of a huge announcement, I don't think.
Not for us in Australia, for sure, yeah. Mine was the Amazon Linux 2 for Cloud9. I mean, come on. Everybody uses Amazon Linux 2 for the last 3 years or 4 years. What have we been waiting for?
Except for AWS.
Yeah. My pizza is calling.
Your pizza is calling. That puts us at the end of the episode, which means I get to quickly thank our sponsors. The user group's gold sponsor, Enabler, and our silver sponsors, AC3, CMD, and Do It International. And of course, to make sure you can go to your pizza as quickly as possible, I want to thank my fellow hosts, JM.
Hey everyone, thank you for listening in to us and looking forward for the next month.
And Guy.
Thanks, guys. It's been huge as always.
And just a quick reminder that everything we discuss is in the show notes, so you can find links there. You can find show notes either in your podcast player or by going to our website at melb.awsug.org.au/podcast. And while you're on our website, remember to join the Slack, and you can talk to us and come to the meetups because they're fun. And then lastly, I want to thank all of you for listening, and let's say goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.